Have you ever poured your heart into a man, given him your time, your attention, your energy, only to be met with distance, indifference, and cold silence? You try to be understanding. You try to be enough. You offer him second chances, maybe 10th. You show up fully, hoping he'll finally see your value. But instead of coming closer, he drifts. And suddenly, you're not the center of his world. You're just another option, another notification on his phone. Does that sound familiar? Let's be real for a moment. So many women have been taught that love is earned through patience, loyalty, and selflessness. That if you just give more, stay longer, hold tighter, eventually you'll get it. But what if I told you that this very belief is not only false, it's sabotaging your power? Here's the unpopular truth. Men don't become obsessed with the woman who chases them, explains herself, or proves her worth. They become obsessed with the woman who knows how to disrupt their ego. The woman who disappears at the fleeting interest. The woman who radiates calm confidence while offering nothing predictable. That woman isn't a fantasy. She's a strategic emotional presence. And if you're ready to step into her mindset, you're in the right place. In this video, you're not just going to hear more advice about playing hard to get. You're going to discover a psychological map, one rooted in depth psychology and stoicism, that reveals how to tap into a man's subconscious through subtle, deliberate moves. This isn't about manipulation. This is about emotional clarity, self-command, and reclaiming the power you've been handing over in silence. We're going to peel back layers. What the male ego really is, why it craves emotional recognition, and how your silence can say more than any declaration of love ever could. You'll learn to stop chasing and start leading. And by the end, you'll understand how to create obsession not through games, but through a transformation of self. I'm working here that in my you above the need for his validation. A little while, once you truly see the dynamic at play, you can't unsee it. Once you experience what it feels like to become the prize, not by pretending, but by actualizing, there's no going back. This knowledge isn't just powerful, it's permanent. It's for a woman who's done begging to be chosen and is ready to be remembered. This isn't surface level dating advice. This is low stoic mastery. And the best part, the deeper into this we go, the more you'll realize this is not about him. It's about you, your calm, your center, your unshakable value. So stay with me, because in part one, we're diving deep into what most people get entirely wrong about male attraction. If you've ever felt like the harder you try, the less it caters, what you'll learn next might just explain everything. Shall we begin? One, understand the male ego, his hidden vulnerability. To truly understand what makes a man obsessive with a woman, you must first strip away the romantic illusions and popular narratives about male desire. You've been conditioned to believe that men are these stoic, emotionally insensitive beings, who either love you or they don't, who either commit or ghost, who are either in or out. But the truth, the love stoic truth, is far more complex and far more useful to know. At the very core of every man is not a rock-hard fortress of rationality, but a deeply fragile and often unexamined ego. This ego, contrary to what you may think, is not fed by your kindness or your loyalty. It is not softened by your sacrifice or swayed by your emotional transparency. Instead, it thrives off validation, confirmation, and most dangerously, emotional control. You see, what he craves most isn't necessarily love. It's the sense of being the center of your world, the emotional sun around which your life orbits. And every time you explain, chase, clarify, or try to prove your worth to him, what you're really doing is feeding this ego with a spoon made of your own self-worth. The male ego is like a child masquerading in the body of a confident adult. He walks tall, speaks with assurance, maybe even acts detached, But inside, there's often a craving for recognition so intense it governs his romantic behavior more than logic or even genuine feelings. And here's the secret most women never realize. It's not your love that hooks him. It's your mystery. It's not your devotion that haunts him. It's your unpredictability. When a man feels he's conquered you emotionally, when he senses that your emotional compass is fixed solely on him, something in him relaxes, not in love, but in dominance. He knows your moods. He can predict your reactions. He feels secure in his place of emotional superiority. And when that happens, you're no longer intriguing. You're just available. The chase is over. And without the chase, the male ego becomes bored. It's not fair, but it's real. That's why understanding his ego is not about manipulating him. It's about protecting your energy and learning how to create a dynamic that actually honors you. This is where stoicism comes in. Not the version of stoicism that denies emotion, but the love stoic path of mastering it. Emotional control isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about not letting your feelings control your moves. When a man feels that he has you emotionally, fully, desperately, consistently, his ego registers a win and the game ends. That's why obsession is born not out of certainty, but out of disruption. When you suddenly become less available, when you stop giving the ego what it's used to, he doesn't feel empowered, he feels destabilized. And that emotional destabilization is where attraction begins to rule ground. Think about it. How many times have you seen a man ignore the woman who's doing everything right, only to chase the one who barely seems to care? It's not because he enjoys
Eri,
pain or chaos. It's
Shirley,
because his
thank you so
ego
much for
senses a challenge, and his
coming.
subconscious equates challenge with value.
I'm
This is
working,
evolutionary.
Shirley.
The male
Thank you,
drive has been wired to
Terry.
pursuit, and pursuit only
Hi.
activates when you're somewhat at risk. So when you show him that you're not emotionally dependent on his presence, when your
Here's
reactions
one.
become
Remove the
unpredictable and your
paint.
energy more reserved,
Remove
the male
the
ego
wall.
doesn't
I'm
interpret
gonna
that as rejection.
put paint.
It interprets it as threat.
This one is a
Not a
wallpaper.
threat to his safety, but to his dominance. And that's when something primal kicks in. The need to reassert control, to win back
You
what was
stick on
lost.
the
That's when
wood.
the thought of you begins to occupy his mind in new,
I need
obsessive
to
ways.
scrap.
But none of this happens if you're predictable. If he knows how you'll react every time
How
he
are you,
pulls away,
Shirley?
if he knows that with one cold text or a short message, you'll spiral into proving your worth again, then
Doing
his ego remains
construction.
fully empowered. And when the ego is healed, it doesn't desire
Eddie,
power,
how are
it only
you?
maintains. But the moment you take a step back, not out of pride or punishment, but out of internal power, everything changes. Suddenly, the ego is no longer fed. It gets hungry. It gets nervous. And in that nervousness, the man who once felt secure in your presence starts to feel unsteady. This, again, is not manipulation. It is the psychological equivalent of rebalancing a scale that has been tipped entirely in his
You
favor.
use steam.
It's a
It's
key.
easier.
Giving
No,
and
I
he
tried it
keeps taking.
yesterday.
There is no mutual
I
gravity,
tried the blower.
only
I
emotional
tried the
inequality.
iron.
But when
And
you
I
remove your
tried the
energy, even slightly, you force the male ego to wake
panat.
up and
Need
reconsider
to
your
scrap.
value. Not because you begged him to,
I had to
but
use
because
the
he starts.
CR. Okay,
To
enjoy your
realize that the
sleep.
constant emotional buffet he was enjoying is no longer being served. And what does the male ego do
Sir
when it
Terry,
realizes it's
yesterday
been
I
cut off
start
from
this
emotional
one.
supply? It starts to scramble. It
Also,
starts to seek.
cannot. It's
It
too
starts to
stick.
obsess.
Very
But,
sticky.
and this
Need
is
to
crucial,
scrap.
it only does so if it believes it could reap something
It's been
valuable.
1 year and a half
That's why being emotionally
since I
scarce,
put this
unpredictable,
wallpaper.
and centered in your own power is not just attractive. It's
Cannot be
essential.
removed.
When you create mystery, you create curiosity. When you
I
create
tried many
distance,
things
you
yesterday,
create pursuit.
but
And
only
when you
this one is
create silence,
working.
you create a vacuum that his ego will do anything to fill. This is why a woman who can manage her own emotions, who doesn't chase, who doesn't over-explain, who can sit with
Sandpaper cannot
discomfort and radiate
also. I
calm,
tried
that
yesterday.
woman is unforgettable. claims, but because she's walking in truth.
Yeah, it's in the
She's
wood.
not here to
That's
beg
why.
for love. She's here to reflect her worth through her actions, not her
It's been
pleadings.
a long time.
This is
Too
what
much
love
speaking.
stoic mastery looks like. It's not about being fake. It's about being self-possessed. It's about knowing that true obsession doesn't come from trying harder. It comes from shifting the emotional dynamic entirely. You are not here to be understood too quickly. You are not here to be endlessly available. You are here to be felt in your absence. That's what the male ego remembers most. Not the woman who always replied, but the woman who became silent when he expected noise. Not the one who stayed, but the one who calmly walked away without explanation. Not the one who declared her love, but the one who simply stopped trying to prove it. This is the new dance, the new rhythm, the one where you no longer play a predictable role in his story. Instead, you become a character he can't stop thinking about, because you no longer perform for his
Knife.
approval. You rise,
Only knife
you
works.
retreat, you
It can work or not
in
also.
doing so, you trigger a crisis within him. Not a crisis of love, but of ego. He begins to wonder what went wrong. He starts to analyze the shift. He
I
replays
will put paint
conversations,
after.
rereads
That's
messages,
why.
structures socials, tries
Not
to
to
measure
hurry.
how and why he
As
lost
long it's
her
gonna
emotional
be
presence.
result
And
very
because
nice.
has that power over you, he begins to want it more than
Need
ever.
some effort.
But the beauty of this approach is that by the time he realizes it, you've already changed. You've already risen. You've already stepped into the woman who no longer needs to be chosen to know her value. That is stoicism in action. Emotional independence. Calm unpredictability. Commanding presence. When you become a woman who no longer reacts, who no longer knows, who no longer explains, you become emotionally rare. And what is rare becomes desired. What is desired becomes pursued. And what is pursued, with no guarantee of possession, becomes obsession. That is the hidden truth of the male ego. And once you understand it, you no longer suffer in confusion. You no longer
True.
ask, why did you lose interest?
I need friends around.
What did I give away too freely?
That's my determination. That's my motivation.
And you treat it like samples and
Even one
processes.
person is watching, that's motivation for me.
Because that's exactly what it is. You are no longer emotionally affordable. You are emotionally expensive. And the man who wants you will have to pay with effort, respect, and consistency. Anything less, and he simply doesn't get access. This is not cruelty. This is clarity. And from clarity comes power. 2. The power of emotional scarcity. Once you understand how the male ego feeds itself on validation, recognition, and emotional control, you begin to see how rare and powerful emotional scarcity truly is. Emotional scarcity isn't about being rude, dismissive, or emotionally unavailable in a toxic
Enjoy
sense.
your sleep.
It's about being
Sweet. Thank you so much.
strategic with your emotional energy. It's about creating a dynamic where your presence is never taken for granted, where your attention is not a certainty, but a reward. If the first part of the puzzle is seeing the male ego for what it is, the second part is learning how to deliberately disrupt its steady supply of validation. Most women don't realize this, but the emotional economy of a relationship functions.
My uncle in the province, there is a like that. What do you call that? Sincerely.
Your attention
When
are
you,
always
ano,
available, always
CDA
predictable,
Ministry, thank you
always
so
accessible.
much.
Then by definition, they
How are
lose
you?
perceived value.
Salamat.
What is
Like that.
abundant is rarely prized. What is certain is rarely pursued. So ask yourself, have you been emotionally independent to a man who hasn't earned it? Have you been offering him the intimacy of your thoughts, the loyalty of your heart, the weight of your feelings
We call that
without ever
sapilia.
asking yourself?
I don't know in English.
He deserves this level of access to you.
Planner? Is it planner?
Emotional scarcity
Like
is
that?
not about playing, but giving.
Trainer? Planner.
A woman whose presence makes an increase, not because she is loud, but because she is precise. A woman whose responses are not
Welcome.
reactionary, but
CDA,
precise.
salamat.
because you dared or chased, but because you simply paused. You didn't explain. You didn't justify. You simply made yourself emotionally scarce. That absence, that sudden loss of constant validation, echoes in his mind far louder than any word I could say. And here's what most people never tell you. It's not just your presence that creates impact. It's the contrast between your presence and your absence. When he's used to hearing your voice, receiving your messages, sensing your energy, and then suddenly there is silence. He doesn't just notice the lack. He feels the void. It gnaws at his mind. It threatens his illusion of control. This is where stoicism becomes not just a philosophy, but a superpower. You're not withdrawing out of fear or spite. You're stepping back with intentionality. You're using absence as a form of energetic expression. You're saying more with your silence than you ever said with your over-explaining. You are creating space. And in that space, his ego starts to echo. Emotional scarcity is the sacred art of preserving your worth in a world that tells you you're capable. It is the refusal to explain your value. It is the decision to be missed rather than constantly present.
True.
Deception isn't built on familiarity. It's built on disruption. When he accepts more and receives
Everything
less,
done
his
slowly,
nervous system gets
not in instant.
he rewatches your Instagram stories. He rereads your last message. His ego processes what he's read. He starts to question his control. This emotional release doesn't make him hate you. It makes him want you. It reawakens the primal parts of his brain that associate effort with value, challenge with attraction, mystery with danger. You become the woman he doesn't quite understand anymore, and the male ego cannot stand what it cannot predict. That unpredictability is your greatest weapon. It
True.
activates the kind of gravitational pull
Amen.
no
Thank you,
one can
Lord.
resist
God
or
help
can
me.
replicate. You become emotionally scarce, and therefore emotionally precious.
Sir
But
Dave,
beware,
thank you so
emotional
much.
scarcity is only effective when it comes from a ground of
Dave
confidence,
promo,
not
hi.
cultivated silence. If you're using it to manipulate or punish, it won't work. He will sense it, and the emotional spell will break. But if you
Slow
withdraw in
process
peace,
makes good
in
result.
dignity,
True.
with zero emotional
That's
cost,
true.
the effect is nuclear. Because this is
100%.
material woman who cannot be baited, cannot be won, cannot be pulled back into the
Need,
old rhythm.
need
This is
effort.
not emotional detachment. This is strategic emotional leadership. And here's the kicker. Emotional scarcity doesn't just impact him, it transforms you. It pulls you out of the constant dance of proving and persuading. It anchors you in your own presence. It trains your nervous system to sit with the discomfort
If
of not
I
being
just
chosen.
rent
Not because you don't
people
care, but because your value
to
doesn't
make
depend on
it
his recognition.
it's
You
expensive
reclaim your
one
timeline.
because
You
too
reinvest
much
in your
scrub.
worth. And
Thank you, Sir
ironically,
J
this
promo.
very shift, where your
Just
attention
comment
moves
my
back to
vlog.
yourself,
I will come in
is what makes
later.
him most magnetic.
I'm
Because
just
now he
working.
feels the pull, but he also senses the boundary, the scarcity, the not knowing. And the more confused his ego feels, the more interested he becomes. This is why women who seem emotionally unattainable always have men thinking about them. It's not that they're distant, it's that they're discerning. They know when to give and when to go quiet. They don't overgive to compensate. They don't fill every silence with a text. They are masters of the emotional pause. That pause is where his obsession begins.
Will
It
you
doesn't
paint
start
it
with,
again
"I
or
love
leave
you."
it wood finish?
It
I'm
starts
gonna
with,
paint it,
"Why is she so
but the
quiet?"
same color with the
It starts with,
mahogany
"Why hasn't she
color.
replied?"
Same like a
It starts
wood,
with, "Did I wait?"
like a varnish.
Her. And that question, "Did you lose her?" is the most powerful hook you can plant in a man's mind. Because when a man begins to fear loss, not through threats, but through emotional scarcity, his ego enters survival mode. He doesn't know whether to chase or wait. He's disoriented. And in that disorientation, the pedestal flips. You are no longer chasing him. He is wondering how to reach you. But here's where most women sabotage this process. power resets. So, if you want to use emotional scarcity effectively, you must also practice emotional endurance. Can you sit with the silence? Can you stay calm in uncertainty? Can you remain still
Well,
when every part of you wants to?
you can see the result. I will show it.
To love stoically is to
Bye
love
for
with
now. I'm
strength.
glad I stopped. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sally. God
It's to let
bless.
him come to his own conclusions without forcing it. Emotional scarcity, when paired with inner stillness and his obsession. Not because he needs you, but because he needs to understand why you're lost. That gap between expectation and reality. That's where his mind moves. That's where he wonders. That's where he
I
lives,
will show you.
rent-free, in his emotional imagination.
Another
So
one
make your
here.
presence known through your
I'm gonna
absence.
scrub.
Be the one who doesn't. Try to be remembered, but because unforgettable. Not because she shouted, but because she disappeared. Let that echo be the loudest sound of his life. Now, if this insight spoke to you, if you're starting to realize that emotional power isn't about being more loving, but more deliberate, then this is your moment to engage. Let this video and comment number 1 if you hear this. Shift deeply. Let me know you're on this journey. And if you want to keep unlocking these truths and master the stoicism that fuels genuine attraction, subscribe now and turn on notifications, because what's coming next will take you even deeper. 3. Strategic silence. Let your absence speak volumes. Silence has always held more power than speech, but most people have no idea how to use it, especially in love. When it comes to the emotional dynamics between men and women, silence is often misunderstood. It's mistaken for distance, punishment, or weakness. But in reality, when used strategically and anchored in deep self-possession, silence becomes a form of emotional alchemy. It turns uncertainty into desire, absence into obsession, and stillness into dominance. Most women fear silence in relationships because they've been conditioned to believe that love must always be spoken, that communication is the glue, and that explanations are the way to avoid misunderstanding. But what if I told you that his attraction doesn't deepen when you explain yourself, but when you don't?
Thank you
What if
po.
his obsession doesn't grow when you react, but when you retreat? What if the true seduction lies not in what you say, but in what you don't say?
Amen. Thank you, Lord. Amen. For the blessings. Thank you, Lord.
And that's because it requires strength. It requires sitting in discomfort. It demands control over your emotional impulses. It forces you to trust the unseen, to know your value so deeply that you don't ever deflect or defy it. This is stoicism in practice, the emotional restraint that amplifies presence, the discipline that elevates desire. Let's be clear. This is not about ghosting or childish games. This is about knowing when not to engage. Knowing when a reaction serves you and when it only feeds his ego. A man pulls away. He gives you silence. Sends a cryptic text. Delays his reply. Cancels plans last minute. What do you usually do? Most women scramble for reassurance. They ask, "Are you okay?" Or worse, "Did I do something wrong?" They chase the clarity. They soothe his ambiguity. They fill in his blanks. But the woman who understands the power of strategic silence does something radical. She does nothing. She doesn't reply. She doesn't question. She doesn't collapse into insecurity. She observes. She pauses. She withdraws her energy, not to punish, but to preserve. In that silence, it roars in his mind. Because he expected a reaction. He expected a pattern. He expected you to affirm his power by needing closure or answers or reassurance. But when you don't give it, something short circuits in his mind. Now he's not just confused, he's threatened. His control has been disrupted. His ego has been bruised by the quiet force of your detachment. Silence breaks his expectations. It reverses the emotional current. It shifts the weight of desire back into your favor. And the man who once felt so sure of his grip on your emotions suddenly finds himself spinning in doubt. Why didn't she respond? Is she upset? Has she lost interest? Has someone else caught her attention? These are not just thoughts. These are sparks of obsession. This is the psychology of absence at work. And unlike words, which can be argued with, silence cannot be countered. It creates a vacuum, and the middle man must fill it. If you can hold your silence long enough, without anxiety, without passive-aggressive undertones, without hidden expectations, that silence becomes sacred. It becomes a signal, a frequency, a mirror that forces him to confront himself. And if there's anything the man ego resists, it's unfiltered reflection. This is where obsession quietly begins, not with your presence, but with your absence.
Welcome.
The key to making this work
Ayan na
is
kita
intention.
puntahan si DN.
Silence must be deliberate. If you're
Puntahan mo yan si Hal. Babalikan ka niyan.
If you're quiet because you're confused, he senses it. But if you're quiet because you've chosen to withhold your energy until it's respected, he feels that difference. That's where the power lives. In the quality of your restraint, in the posture of your pause. Silence becomes magnetic when it's paired with confidence. When you're still, not because you're stuck, but because you've evolved. That kind of silence shifts the emotional equilibrium. Suddenly, he doesn't know where he stands. He doesn't know if he's winning. And in the male psyche, that uncertainty is intoxicating. You become the question he can't answer, the chapter he can't close, the song stuck on loop in his head. And you don't say a word. This is why so few women access this level of emotional power. Because silence isn't easy. It requires mastery over the ego, control over emotional reactivity, and most of all, trust. Trust that you don't need to fill the silence to remain relevant. Trust that the absence of your voice is sometimes the loudest message you can send. But when you do it, when you hold that line, something incredible happens. His ego, once inflated by constant engagement, begins to shrink. And in its place, a craving grows.
10,000 songs in 1 seconds ang hindi lahat ay saklas dahil yung mga trending songs like 80s, 90s, 2000s, andito na lahat mo mapapakinggan. Gagawin mo lang dyan, isaksak mo lang sa kung mayroon kang karaoke speaker, pwede mo na siyang automatic isaksak na siya, hindi
Not just for your body or attention, but for the emotional validation he used to take for granted. Suddenly, your silence becomes the space where he confronts the reality of losing you. And that confrontation is what activates the chase. Because obsession doesn't begin when a man has you. It begins when he fears he never fully did. And nothing triggers that fear more than your quiet, deliberate withdrawal. The most dangerous woman is not the one who yells, not the one who pleads, not the one who over-explains. It's the one who simply stops reacting, stops giving, stops participating in the old emotional dance. She doesn't need to say, I'm done. Her absence speaks it. Her stillness says everything. And that silence, it lingers. It follows him. It plays on repeat in his mind. And the ego that once believed it had you wrapped around its finger begins to unravel. That unraveling, that psychological discomfort, is what drives him to think of you obsessively, to wonder what changed, to fear what he might have lost. And in that space, you reclaim the emotional power you once handed away. Not with rage, not with drama, but with silence, with dignity, with stoicism. Your silence isn't passive. It is profoundly active. It communicates value. It sets standards. It separates you from the noise of every other woman who reacts the same way. You become rare. And what is rare becomes unforgettable. unforgettable. You don't need to post cryptic quotes. You don't need to tell your friends that you did it. You don't need to make a scene. You simply remove your energy. You let him sit with the discomfort. You allow the silence to do its work. And while he's spiraling in questions, you're focusing on yourself. You're not anxiously waiting. You're rising, growing, expanding. You're investing in your evolution. That is the ultimate shift. Because now, your silence doesn't just create curiosity, it radiates transformation. He doesn't just listen, he hears the new you may never return. And that fear is what creates obsession. Not the fear of you leaving, but the fear of you changing into a woman he no longer has access to. And here's what he learns, slowly and painfully. Silence is not the absence of love. Sometimes it's the consequence of not valuing. And that realization cuts deeper than any argument can. This is emotional warfare without violence, strategy without games, power without chaos, and it's reserved for the woman who understands that her words are precious, her energy sacred, and her silence divine. In a world that demands constant communication, strategic silence is radical. It sets you apart. It protects your energy. It demands that you show up differently or not at all. And that demand is unspoken, but absolute. That's what makes it powerful. That's what makes you powerful. Because when you master the art of silence, you master emotional command. And emotional command is what makes you unforgettable. 4. Shift the power dynamic. Become the prize. The moment you decide that you will no longer exist as a supporting character in a man's emotional mandate, is the moment the power dynamic in your relationships begins to shift forever. Most women don't realize that the root of their frustration lies not in the man's behavior, but in the invisible roles they've been playing. Roles they never auditioned for, yet unconsciously accepted. The caretaker, the validator, the emotional constant. These roles don't mean devotion, they mean dependence, and not the kind that leads to deep love, but the kind that drains your energy while intruding zero. You cannot be both the pursuer and the prize. You cannot chase and be chased. You cannot constantly affirm him and still expect him to wonder if he's earned you. To become the prize, you must first dismantle the belief that your worth is proven through sacrifice. You must stop offering unconditional emotional access to someone who hasn't proven he deserves it. Becoming the prize is not about arrogance or superiority. It's about recognition. It's about understanding that your energy is not neutral. It holds weight. Your presence is a gift. Your attention is currency. And the man who receives it should not be the one who triggers your anxiety, but the one who respects your value. But this won't happen by accident. The dynamic only shifts when you consciously change the rhythm of the relationship. It shifts when you stop responding to emotional breadcrumbs and start requiring consistency. It shifts when you stop over-explaining and start letting your absence speak. It shifts when your silence becomes a filter, separating the men who are emotionally lazy from those who are emotionally serious. You become the prize not because you say you are, but because you behave as though you are. You don't run toward the man who pulls away. You don't shrink when he becomes cold. You don't chase clarity in moments of chaos. You pull back, not from fear, but from knowing. Knowing that you are not a woman who begs, not a woman who explains her worth, not a woman who competes for attention. You are the woman who calmly detaches from anything that disrupts her peace. And that calm detachment is not indifference, it's strength. It tells him something louder than any words.
What's the first thing you do to wake up in the morning if you feel cold? Setback. Instead, try the technique from Einstein's and Jose Sola. You see, when we are awake, our brain is at what is called beta, the waking level.
She is not mine unless I earn her. That single truth changes everything, because now he's no longer reacting to your emotional dependence. codependency, he's reacting to your emotional leadership. You've taken back control, not through force, not through games, but through energetic sovereignty. This is what men can't resist, not because you manipulated them, but because you've created contrast. You've created a before and after. Before, he had easy access to your thoughts, your feelings, your reactions. Now, he has questions, he has doubts, he's uncertain, and that uncertainty drives desire. Men don't obsess over women who explain everything. They obsess over the ones who are a little out of reach, not because they're withholding, but because they have standards. Standards he must rise to meet. And here's the part that most women miss. Being the prize doesn't mean you never show interest. It means you show it selectively. You reveal layers, slowly. You express affection with boundaries. You let him feel that he matters without ever giving him the impression that you fall apart if he left. That is the emotional tension that fuels obsession. Not chaos, not drama, but calibrated desire. When you are the prize, your value is not up for debate. You don't have to repeat your needs. You don't chase closure. You walk away when something feels misaligned. You hold your head high, not because you never feel fear, but because you've trained yourself not to act on it. This is what makes you unforgettable. The woman who sets the emotional pace. The woman who creates space instead of filling it with gap. The woman who doesn't collapse when he distances, but expands into herself. That expansion is what makes him come closer. Because now you're not just someone he's dating, you're someone he has to win. And winning you doesn't mean breaking down your walls. It means proving that he's worthy of your softness. That he can be consistent enough to earn your vulnerability. That he can handle your silence without weaponizing it against you. This is how you shift the power dynamic without ever saying a word. Your actions declare, I don't exist to complete you. I exist to expand beside you. And if you can't meet me there, I will walk alone, stronger, more radiant, more magnetic than ever. Because the woman who is the prize isn't defined by whether he loves her. She's defined by how deeply she loves herself. That kind of self-possession is what men never forget. And the reason they can't forget it is simple. It's rare. In a world of emotional oversharing and endless availability, the woman who practices emotional discernment is sacred. She moves differently. She speaks with fewer words. She reacts less. She holds more. She's not a puzzle to be solved. She's a presence to be earned. That's what love stoic is all about. Not suppressing emotion, but owning it. Not hiding from connection, but elevating the quality of it. Not proving yourself through pain, but proving your power through peace. And when you live this way, calm, clear, unattached to outcomes, but deeply anchored in your worth, you don't just attract attention, you command it. You leave men wondering, remembering, wanting, because you've stopped auditioning, you've stopped performing, you've stopped lowering your standards to make someone feel comfortable. Now it's his job to step up, to meet you where you are, to prove that he deserves access to you, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually, energetically. And the moment he feels that shift, the moment he senses that you are no longer emotionally accessible without effort, is the moment the chase begins. Not because you ran, but because you stood still. Because you let him feel the emotional gap. Because you stopped compensating for his inconsistency and started radiating your own. That radiation is irresistible. It doesn't beg. It doesn't demand. It simply is. And that being, that grounded, radiant, magnetic being, is what stays with him long after the conversations end. Long after the messages fade. Long after the relationship transforms. Because once a man sees you as the prize, he cannot unsee it. You become the standard, the one who measures others against, the one who made him question himself, the one who challenged him not by asking him to change, but by refusing to shrink. And when that realization hits him, that he may have lost to you. It doesn't just bruise his ego, it ignites it. It awakens that primal burning need to reclaim what slipped through his fingers. And that's when you become his obsession. Not because you planned it, but because you embodied it. If you're still here, still feeling every word, and you're beginning to see this isn't just about men, it's about mastering yourself, then let me know. Like this video and comment #1 if you're reclaiming your power. And subscribe now, because what's coming next will elevate your love life, your mindset, and your emotional world beyond anything you've known. Let's keep rising together. 5. Break the pattern. Stop reacting. Start leading. Every relationship, whether casual or deeply intimate, eventually falls into a rhythm, a series of emotional cues and responses that form an invisible choreography. You say something, he responds in a certain way. He withdraws, you pursue. He delays replying, you overthink. He shows signs of detachment, you compensate with warmth. This rhythm, this script, quickly becomes a trap. The problem is not that the dance exists. The problem is that you're dancing to his music, on his terms, following a pattern he controls. And as long as you react the same way, every time, he doesn't need to evolve. He doesn't need to change. He knows how to play the game. But if you want to shift the dynamic, you must break the choreography. And not just once, but permanently. You must become the woman who no longer dances for the sake of being noticed. You must be the one who rewrites the emotional steps entirely. That begins with not reacting, not because you're emotionally numb, but because you've outgrown the cycle. When he pulls away, your instinct might be to reach out. When he's inconsistent, your reflex might be to clarify. When he tries to trigger jealousy or create emotional confusion, you might feel the urge to confront, explain, or restore harmony. But what if you did the opposite? What if you allowed the pattern to collapse by refusing to participate in it? What if your calm became a disruption? The emotional choreography depends on your predictability. He says something vague, and you decode it. He becomes distant, and you chase. He sends a breadcrumb, and you turn it into a feast. But when you no longer do these things, when you stop playing your old role, he loses his rhythm. He becomes confused, disoriented. He doesn't know what to expect. And this unpredictability is what shifts everything. Because now, instead of directing the emotional tempo, he's chasing a beat he no longer controls. You are no longer reacting, you are leading. And leadership in a relationship doesn't mean dominance. It means having emotional initiative. It means you don't wait for his mood to determine yours. It means you choose silence over begging, boundaries over explanations, retreat over reaction. And this choice is where stoicism becomes real, not in the absence of feeling, but in the mastery of response. The key here is consistency. You cannot break the pattern one day and resume it the next. Emotional leadership is not a performance, it's a shift in identity. You become the woman who no longer explains herself when disrespected. The woman who no longer texts first after emotional distance. The woman who lets him feel the space he created, without rushing in to fix or soften it. You become the woman whose peace is non-negotiable, whose center is self-sourced. And that power, it is impossible to ignore. Because now he's dealing with someone he can't control. And the male ego, which thrives on emotional predictability, begins to malfunction. It searches for the old pattern, the old dance, the old cues. But you remove them, you become unreadable. And that unreadability is what creates fascination. A woman who no longer reacts on command becomes a riddle the ego is desperate to solve. The man who once felt secure now questions everything. Did I go too far? Has she moved on? Did I misread her loyalty? And he doesn't ask these questions aloud. He spirals with them internally. Your silence, your restraint, your refusal to fall, alone, will ever louder than any confrontation. of choices. You speak less, but when you do, it lands. You pause longer, but your absence is meaningful. You show up selectively, and your presence becomes a privilege, not a given. This is emotional sovereignty, and it creates a dynamic most women have never experienced. They're used to women who clean, who explain, who try to resolve, but when they meet a woman who simply observes, who doesn't rush to fill silence, who doesn't chase, they're thrown off balance. That imbalance is the beginning of attraction. And that attraction, when paired with confusion and ego distortion, becomes obsession. But this can only happen if you stop dancing to his rhythm, if you break the pattern completely, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because breaking the pattern means sitting with discomfort. It means letting him be silent without chasing, letting him test boundaries without correcting him, letting him feel the void he created without rushing in to fill it. This requires internal power, but that power changes the game. It makes you rare. Not because you're playing hard to get, but because you are hard to get. For anyone who cannot meet you with clarity, consistency, and presence. This is what love stoic women do. They don't collapse into chaos. They don't play emotional ping pong. They choose peace, even when it's silent. They choose boundaries, even when it's lonely. They choose emotional discipline, even when their hearts want to speak. Because they know that long-term connection cannot be built on reactive behavior. It must be built on intentional energy. You cannot influence a man's emotional world if you're always reacting to it. You can only influence it when you rise above it. When you stop chasing clarity, you start becoming clarity. That is the shift. And when you live this way, you not only change how he sees you change how you see yourself. You are no longer a woman who waits for him to show up. You are the woman who leads with calm detachment, who holds her center, who lets her emotional maturity speak louder than her words. And in doing so, you become unforgettable, because you didn't just break the pattern. You became the pattern he now tries to understand. The one he replays, the one he studies, the one he wonders about. Not because you tried to make him feel something, but because you made yourself unshakable. And that, more than beauty, more than sex, more than charm, is what anchors a man's obsession. You are no longer a predictable note in his emotional symphony. You are the silence that interrupts the music. And in that silence, he hears the loudest truth of all: she's no longer dancing. And if he wants to find her, he'll have to learn a new rhythm. 6. Flourish without him. Make him witness your growth. The final, most soul-shaking phase in shifting your emotional balance and triggering obsession is not about words or withdrawal. It's about your becoming. It's about the undeniable force of your visible growth in his absence. Not the kind you perform for attention, but the kind you embody so fully that it radiates through every part of your life. When a man sees you rise without him, not just functioning, but flourishing, it does something to his ego that silence alone cannot accomplish. Your transformation becomes a mirror, one he didn't expect, and certainly one he can't escape. He begins to feel a slow but piercing realization. Not only is she gone, she's better without me. And that idea, that image, that new reality, it burns. Because most men, especially those used to emotional control, secretly believe that you will thrive without them. They may not say it, but their ego quietly assumes that you will orbit them long after they pull away. That you will wait, that you will hope, that you will pause your life, just in case they return. And when you prove that belief wrong, not through arguments or revenge, but through undeniable progress, you've got the very core of that ego. Because now, you are no longer his reflection. You are your own light. This is where the stoic transformation becomes visible, where your silence becomes action, where your calm becomes motion. You begin doing things that have nothing to do with him, pursuing goals, improving your body, building your mind, expanding your social circle, deepening your purpose. Not to be seen, but to be yourself. The version of you that was buried beneath emotional exhaustion, self-doubt, and misplaced loyalty, and as this new version emerges, something shifts in you. You don't even have to tell it. The energy changes. The people around you feel it. The way you speak, the way you walk, the way you carry yourself with grace. Not because you want attention, but because you finally remember who you are. And then he sees it. Maybe through social media, maybe through mutual friends, maybe just by sensing your emotional shift. But he feels it. And in that moment, obsession takes root in a whole new way. Now, it's not just about silence, it's about regret. It's not just about wondering what you're thinking, it's about realizing what you lost. This is the stage most women never reach because they confuse detachment with inaction. But detachment is the starting point, growth is the response. And when you grow publicly but powerfully, when you radiate progress without spite, without the need to flaunt, he begins to spiral. Because now, he's emotionally displaced. The woman he once controlled is no longer waiting. The dynamic has shifted entirely. He is no longer the emotional center. He is now a distant memory orbiting the gravity of your transformation. And his ego, wounded by absence and uncertainty, now suffers from something far worse, comparison. He compares himself to the new energy you radiate. He compares who you were with him to who you've become without him. And that comparison, it guts him. Because no man wants to believe that your highest self emerged in his absence. That your beauty sharpened, your confidence solidified, your world expanded. Not with him in it, but with him gone. That's when obsession becomes personal. That's when he begins to crave not just your attention, but redemption. He needs to prove to himself that he still matters, but he hasn't been replaced, that he still has relevance in the story you're now writing without him. And that drive, that deep need for emotional validation, it pushes him into a new behavior. He starts watching more closely, reaching out subtly, dropping signals, asking mutual friends, or worse, trying to insert himself into your life again, not with changed behavior, but with wounded pride. And you don't respond like the old you. You don't engage out of nostalgia or loneliness. You don't explain your silence or validate his regrets. You observe. You let his energy pass through you without moving your center. Because the woman you've become doesn't lower her frequency to match old patterns. She rises and stays risen. She allows herself to be witnessed, but not accessed. That distinction, that you can be visible but unavailable, is what drives his mind into overdrive. You're not hiding. You're not chasing. You're simply unreachable. Not because you're pretending, but because you've genuinely evolved. You're operating from a place of internal peace, and that peace is what he cannot buy, borrow, or fake. He either meets you in it, or watches from the outside. This is the final straw to the male ego. Not a dramatic confrontation, not a scathing message. Just the calm, grounded, unstoppable evolution of a woman who no longer orbits anyone but herself. And that's where the deep, haunting kind of obsession is born. The kind that doesn't pass quickly. The kind that stays. The kind that haunts his thoughts at night and lingers in his dreams. Because you didn't just leave. You elevated. You didn't just walk away. You ascended. And now, whether he ever gets another chance or not, he knows one thing with absolute certainty. He will never find another you. Because there is only one you. And the path you took, rooted in stoic detachment, emotional scarcity, strategic silence, and visible growth, is one most people don't have the courage to walk. but you did. And because of that, you don't just reclaim your power, you redefine it. So if you've been holding back your own evolution, waiting for permission, waiting for closure, waiting for him to return, this is your wake-up call. Don't just survive his absence. Use it. Use it to build. Use it to rise. Use it to become a force so magnetic that his ego, once swollen with certainty, now trembles in uncertainty. Not because you said anything, but because you became something else entirely, something greater, something untouchable. And if you're feeling this right now, if this part of the message hits you where you live, then don't hold back. Like this video and comment number 1 if you're done waiting and ready to rise. And subscribe now, because the next chapter is about stepping fully into your power, not just in love, but in life. Let's keep building. Let's keep rising. This is only the beginning. The journey to understanding how to make a man obsessed with you has nothing to do with manipulation, games, or bending yourself to fit into a version that pleases him. It has everything to do with peeling away the false narratives you've been fed about love, power, and worth. It begins with recognizing that most women have been taught to love from a place of fear. Fear of being alone, fear of being replaced, fear of not being enough. That fear creates a loop of overgiving, over-explaining, overreacting. And in that loop, the male ego thrives. It becomes loaded on your energy, your emotion, your effort. But it never feels the need to reciprocate, not because he's incapable, but because you've trained him that you will show up whether he does or not. The transformation happens the moment you break that pattern, not out of bitterness, but out of clarity. When you stop making yourself emotionally available to someone who hasn't proven his value, you don't just protect your peace, you provoke a psychological awakening. And not just in him, in yourself. Because through that withdrawal, you begin to understand the depth of your own power. Not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, rooted, immovable power of a woman who knows her. Worth without needing to confront. That power is what disrupts the ego. That power is what awakens obsession. And most importantly, that power is what frees you. Because suddenly, you're not waiting for him to realize anything. You're not needing him to become anyone. You are whole, present, centered. And ironically, it's this state, where you no longer need him, that makes him need you. The shift doesn't begin when he starts to chase you. It begins when you stop chasing him. That single decision is the fork in the road. It leads you down a path of emotional sobriety, where you stop feeding illusions and start grounding yourself in what's real. You begin to question not how to get his attention, but whether he deserves yours. You stop asking if he's going to text, and start asking if he's contributing to your peace. These questions are the foundation of emotional maturity. They lead you away from validation seeking and towards self-possession. And when you reach that place, when your self-worth is no longer tied to his level of interest, you become powerful beyond measure. You become the emotional mirror he didn't expect, the one that reflects not his fantasy, but his failure to meet the standard. And that reflection is what cracks the ego open. Not through anger, not through confrontation, but through grace. Through stillness. Through the realization that you will not fight to be seen, because you no longer stand in places that refuse to see. This is what true emotional leadership looks like. It's not about controlling anyone. It's about mastering yourself. And that mastery, it bleeds into every part of your life. You speak differently. You dress differently. You choose differently. You stop needing to be rescued because you've already saved yourself from your past patterns, from your insecurities, from your old identity that made you believe love had to be earned through pain. And this evolution is what shifts the power dynamic entirely. You don't walk around proving your worth, you embody it. And that embodiment is magnetic. It doesn't chase, it doesn't plead. it simply radiates. And when a man encounters that energy, when he feels that you are not emotionally accessible by default, it challenges him in a way he rarely experiences, because now your attention feels sacred, it feels rare, it feels earned. And the male ego, which is constantly scanning for significance, suddenly realizes that your recognition is no longer guaranteed. That absence hits harder than rejection. It's not the dramatic goodbye that wounds him. It's the graceful removal of your energy, the quiet exit, the stillness where your voice used to be. That is what lingers. That is what haunts. And as he spirals in reflection, as he replays your moments, revisits your photos, and analyzes your silence, he begins to understand something he couldn't see when he had you. You were the one. Not because you loved him loudly, but because you loved. You're something to lead, to reflect, to grow, to rise. That realization doesn't just touch his mind, it invades it. Because now, he's not just missing you. He's missing the version of himself that felt valuable in your presence. That's what the ego can't let go of. Not just your beauty, your body, your company, but the mirror you once held up for him, the mirror that made him feel worthy. And when that mirror is gone, he doesn't just want you, he needs you, not for love, but for ego restoration. And that's when you must remember your power, that you do not return to soothe what your absence rightly exposed, that you do not dim your light to comfort someone who couldn't handle your shine, that you do not re-enter the emotional dance just because he's finally noticed the silence. This is the moment when many women fold, when they return to old patterns of loneliness, necessity, and false hope. But if you stay grounded, if you stay centered, you become emotional. Not because you're cold, but because you're complete. That's what breaks him. Not your anger, not your tears, but your peace, your progress, your presence. That's the final lesson. That obsession doesn't begin when you chase him. It begins when you chase your purpose, when you turn inward, when you rise. And through that rise, you stop being the chapter in the story and become the turning point. The one he couldn't forget, the one he couldn't control, the one who showed him, through silence and strength, that love without self-respect is not love, it's sacrifice. And you now choose differently, because you are no longer the woman who waits to be chosen. You are the woman who chooses herself, again and again, until the man who steps forward doesn't just want you, but is ready to meet you, not from his ego, but from his truth. That is where your story really begins. And from that point forward, you don't need to create obsession. You simply become unforgettable. Have you ever wondered what makes a man go from intrigued to absolutely captivated? His casual interest to the point where he's completely consumed by thoughts of you. If you ever felt frustrated by modern dating, second-guessing your every move, or wondering why he's not as invested as you are, radiant and the boundaries you set. In this video, we'll dive into some specific that guide you self-protection and living presently. You'll find that these are timeless principles rooted in stoicism and dark stoic psychology, designed to help you master the art of emotional connection and self-respect. Imagine stepping into your power and becoming the woman he can't stop thinking about, not because you're chasing him, but because you've become irresistible. That's what we're going to uncover today. And here's the best part. These acts don't just make him fall for you, they make you fall in love with yourself too. Ready to get started? Let's begin with the first powerful shift that will transform how men see you. 1. Be comfortable walking away. Here's a question for you. Have you ever stayed in a relationship longer than you should have because you were afraid of being alone? Maybe you've put up with behavior that made you feel unappreciated or even disrespected because you didn't want to lose him. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. But here's the truth. The moment you start fearing the end of a relationship, you lose your power. Men are hardwired to admire strength and independence. It's not about being cold or detached. It's about knowing your worth so deeply that you're not afraid to walk away when he isn't meeting your standards. This isn't just about dating. This is stoicism in action. It's the art of staying grounded in your self-worth, regardless of how others behave. Picture this. You're with a man who's been distant or inconsistent. Instead of clinging to the hope that he'll change, you confidently let him know your expectations. You say, I value honesty and effort, and it feels like we're not on the same page. I'm willing to walk away if that's what's best for both of us. Do you feel the power in those words? You're not begging for him to stay. You're showing him that your happiness doesn't depend on his validation. When you do this, something incredible happens. Men start to see you differently. They begin to view your time, attention, and presence as privileges, not guarantees. And here's the kicker. When you're willing to leave, they're far more likely to step up. Why? Because humans by nature chase what they feel losing. It's one of the core principles of decisive staggering, knowing what feels. But let me ask you this. Are you ready to put yourself first? To start generating the life you desire? It doesn't mean walking away at the first sign of trouble. It means setting clear boundaries and following through when those boundaries are crossed. Remember, relationships are about mutual respect. It does not mean half-hearted. Walking away isn't easy. It's making space for something better. Let's reflect for a moment. Think back to a time when you stayed in a situation that didn't serve you. How did it make you feel? Did you lose a little bit of your confidence each time you compromised on what you deserved? Now imagine how empowering it would feel to say, I'm worth more than this, and act accordingly. Walking away isn't just an act of courage, it's an act of self-love. It's saying, I trust myself to make decisions that honour my worth. And guess what? Men respect women who respect themselves. They're drawn to the quiet confidence of someone who doesn't need them but chooses to be with them. So, what does this look like in practice? First, you need to identify your deal breakers. Is it a lack of effort, dishonesty, emotional unavailability? Whatever it is, be clear about it in your own mind. Then, communicate those boundaries calmly and confidently. If he crosses them, don't just threaten to leave, be prepared to follow through. This isn't about punishing him. It's about honouring yourself. Here's the beauty of this act. Even if he doesn't step back, you're still winning. Why? Because you've proved yourself to attract someone who will. Someone who sees your value and treats you accordingly. And that's what makes this first act so transformative. It's not just about making them fall in love with you. It's about falling in love with yourself. Before we move on to the next act, let me leave you with this question. What's one area in your life where you're still afraid to set boundaries? How would it feel to reclaim your power in that area? 2. Value your attention. Let me ask you this. How many times have you felt like you were giving everything in a relationship, your time, your energy, your emotional support, only to feel like you're being taken for granted? Maybe you're the one always initiating plans, packing them, repeating the connection with it. It's exhausting, isn't it? And deep down it makes you wonder, why do you not know that? Here's the answer. When you give your attention away too freely, it loses value. Think about it. If you had unlimited That's why one of the most powerful acts you can embrace is learning to value your attention. Men are naturally drawn to women who command respect, not by demanding it, but by living in a way that shows their time is precious. When you prioritize yourself, your goals and your passions, you send a clear message. My attention is privileged, guaranteed. Now, let's break this down. What does it look like to value your attention?
Man,
First, it
how
means
are
focusing
you?
on your life.
Good
Ask
morning
yourself,
there.
what lights you up? What are the goals, hobbies, or dreams you've been putting off because you've been so focused
Nobody
on them?
talks.
When you channel your energy
Nobody
into things in your
talks.
life you love, something
They're just
incredible
listening.
happens. You naturally become magnetic. Your energy shifts from seeking validation to encouraging. And trust me, you will feel that difference. But valuing your attention isn't just about self-growth. It's about having practical too. Here's where the stoic psychology comes into play. You're not always readily available.
You're
You
working.
create a sense of intrigue, non-stoppable. Why is
I
detachment
will just finish
important?
this one.
What's she up to?
I will put
This
varnish.
isn't about playing games. It's about showing that you have a rich, full life that doesn't revolve around you. Let me give you an example. Imagine you're in the early stages of dating. He texts you, and instead of clicking everything to reply, you take your time. Maybe you're at the gym, hanging out with friends or working on a project. And you respond extremely quickly. It's like contemplating something hard. That simple act of delayed gratification creates an air of mystery. You start to see you as someone who's confident, independent, and worth pursuing. Here's the thing.
OMG, grab a
Valuing
guy
your
outside and
attention
ask.
isn't being cold or distant.
No,
It's
I
about
don't
balance.
have work.
Show interest.
It's okay.
Don't overreact.
I just slowly.
Let him take your next sometimes.
No
He's
need.
not putting in the effort.
It's simple
He's just
only.
managed to
Same.
put that distance. Instead, redirect that energy back into yourself. This concept is everyone's stoicism. The idea that your worth isn't
I just
determined
make
by
it
external
nice.
validation, but by how you value yourself. By focusing on what you can control, your time, your boundaries, and your energy become unshakable. And that inner strength is irresistible. But let's be real. Valuing your attention takes practice.
Cannot grab a
It
guy.
requires
I'm alone.
working old habits,
Dangerous.
learning to say no to behaviors that drain you. So here's a challenge for you. The next time you feel tempted to overextend yourself, pause and ask, is this
Wapo,
person worth
hello.
my attention? If the answer is no,
Thank you,
it's time to
Wapo.
pull
Good
back and focus on
morning.
what truly matters. If you're loving this video so far and you're ready to start valuing your attention, hit this video and comment number one
Good
below.
evening. There,
Your
I hope you are.
engagement means the world to me.
I'm feeling
It
better
helps
now.
me
I do
feel
my
some
work.
kind of community
That
valuing
means
me. And if you
I'm
haven't
strong.
already, hit that subscribe button and
I
join
meditate
Sam's
only,
journey
and
of
then after
empowerment
that,
and transformation.
I'm okay.
Let's keep the momentum going. Are you ready for the next step?
I drink
Stay
many
tuned
water,
because it only
so
gets better from here.
I feel comfort.
2. Emotional independence. Have you ever found yourself waiting by your phone, hoping for a text, a call, or some kind of reassurance from him?
Yeah.
Have you ever felt
Thank
like
you,
your mood
Wapo.
for the entire day depended on how
We're
much
going to
attention
work
you gave him?
now.
If so, you need to
Thank you,
know.
it's MM.
Many women fall into the
I
trap
don't
of
have
emotional
to do things,
dependence
that's
without
why.
even realizing
It's
it.
better to do
But here's
this
the truth. Nothing pushes a
than
man away
overthink.
faster than feeling like he's responsible for his happiness. And nothing draws him closer than a woman who's her own source of joy. Emotional independence isn't just a buzzword, it's a lifestyle.
Before when
It's
I,
the art
but
of
my
mastering your
daughter
emotions
is here.
so your peace
When
and
I asked
happiness aren't tied to
the
his
man there
actions.
working in the
And
other
let's be
house, and
honest,
then
isn't that
after
what
that
we
she
all truly
asked
want?
my
A
phone
relationship
number.
where love is freely given,
That's why
not
no good,
something we desperately cling to out
no
of
good
fear
a
or
stranger to come
insecurity.
in.
The concept of emotional independence
Hello,
is
say
rooted in
it.
stoicism, which teaches us that happiness should come from within, not from external factors. When you embody this philosophy, you become someone who radiates
begin
Let's
harvest
take a
and
moment to
other
reflect.
duties until 6 years.
Think about a
Ah,
time
okay,
when you
that's
felt
good.
dependent on someone's attention and approval. How did it make you feel when you didn't get what you deserved? Did it leave you anxious, doubting yourself?
Take a rest, so
Or
ako.
even questioning your worth? Maybe you're feeling the opposite.
Almost done. I just put the finishing touch. Finishing.
How freeing does that
I
feel?
will put
To cultivate emotional
no rest.
independence.
Ah, why?
Becoming aware of your emotional triggers. Do
Yeah,
you
sometimes
notice a
it's
way
better
your
to
brain
not
starts
rest
when he
because
doesn't
if you
respond
rest,
to a text
then
right
your
away?
body will gonna pain.
Do you feel your mood dip if you feel resistant?
Like earlier, I on the bed almost
Pause and remind
8
yourself
o'clock.
his actions don't
That's
define
why
your worth.
I wake up
Bad
after
enough,
that.
no matter what.
It's not good.
This is where dark stoic
I must
psychology
away
comes
from
into
my bed
play.
6 o'clock
By
or 7
mastering
o'clock.
your emotional responses, you take back the power you may have unknowingly
I
given
get
away.
8 to 10 hours of
Think of it like
sleep
this.
every day. So,
Every time you allow someone else's actions to dictate your feelings, you're
me
holding
also,
on
but
to
my
control of
daughter
your
is
inner peace.
very early.
It's really nice to
So last
identify
night
the
I sleep
assertive.
only
No matter
11,
what, you
10,
send a
11.
powerful message.
5
Remember the
hours
master of
only.
your emotions.
So she wakes up 4 o'clock.
Imagine you're dating someone and you have an amazing time together. Out of nowhere, he comes back. He texts less, seems distracted, or doesn't make as much effort. The emotionally dependent version of you might think, wondering, what did I do wrong? How can I fix this? But the emotionally independent version of you responds differently. Instead of chasing him or seeking reassurance, you simply mirror his energy. You continue living your life, focusing on your goals and passions. You show him, without saying a word, that your world doesn't revolve around him. What happens next? 9 times out of 10 he comes back. Why? Because emotional independence is magnetic. It shows him that you're confident, secure, not impatient. It means that you're a man who can hold their own emotionally, and if he doesn't come back, that's
There is
okay
a stick,
too.
that's why I
Because
scrub
an
the stick.
emotionally independent woman knows that her peace is negotiable, and that the right person will bring you her speed. But emotional independence isn't just about being independent. It's also about how you take care of yourself. Ask yourself, what brings me joy outside of my relationships? Maybe it's a hobby you've been neglecting, friendships you've let drift, or a self-care routine you've put on the back burner. Reclaim those parts of your life. When you're fulfilled on your own, you don't need to cling to anyone else for happiness. And let's not forget the importance
Exactly
of
are you
emotional
doing?
resilience.
I scrub the
Life
the
is
sticky
unpredictable,
things in
and
the floor.
relationships can have their ups and downs.
Yeah, I'm done already the
Emotional
wallpaper there.
independence means being
This
able
one
to
is a
handle
sticky
life's
one. I put
challenges
before when I
with
move here. I put some like a wallpaper,
chaos.
and then I want to remove it and cleanse it, and then I'm gonna put some varnish. That's why I need to clean up first before I do the varnish. This one is sticky. Cannot remove in the sandpaper. Must be scrub. Scrub.
Let's keep this journey going, because the next act will take your self-growth to an even higher level.
See, there is already clean. Yesterday's a lot here. The wallpaper is ano.
Heavy lifting in a relationship. Maybe you're always the one to text first, plan the dates, or keep the conversations alive. It's exhausting, isn't it? But here's the truth most women don't realize: love needs space to chase. It's not because they're disinterested or lazy. It's because desire is fueled by the effort they invest. And if you're always the one doing the chasing, you're robbing him of the chance to miss you. Here's something powerful to consider. Relationships thrive on balance. If one person is constantly pouring energy into the connection while the other coasts along, The dynamic becomes unbalanced, and resentment can creep in.
Yeah, yesterday it's all walls, wallpaper
The
here.
connection deepens. That's why one of the most irresistible acts you can embrace is giving him the space to speak up.
It's man work, but I did.
Let's explore
I'm also a
these
man.
topics.
I'm a woman, I'm a man. I am two in one. No, I'm straight. I mean the ability. I can do a man's ability also. But I am straight. 100% straight. Yes, I need to clean first before I will put the new look. So it's not wasting. Never mind, it takes long. As long it's gonna be very nice. Worth it. Because the color is mahogany, so if there is white, it will not color mahogany. There is a white. Still on.
This concept is deeply rooted in Stoic psychology. The idea that scarcity creates value.
This one, oh, I scratch too much because the wallpaper is very sticky. I scratch it. It's a lot of scratches. Irritated the skin.
That fear often stems from a lack of confidence in their own work. But when you embrace stoicism and ground yourself in your value, you realize that giving space isn't a risk, it's a strategy.
Still sticky.
It's a way to allow the relationship to breathe and grow, rather than suffocating it with constant attention. So, how do you put this into practice? Start by becoming more aware of how often you initiate.
It will be, must be
Always the one
nice.
texting first. Challenge yourself to wait and see if he reaches out. If you're the one always suggesting plans, take a step back and let him take the lead. This doesn't mean you stop engaging altogether. It's about creating balance and allowing him to show his interest. But what happens if he doesn't step up? If you give him space and he fades away, that tells you something important. It shows you that his interest wasn't as strong as you deserve. And while that may sting in the moment, it's a blessing in disguise. It frees you to attract someone who will put in the effort, someone who sees your
Maybe the
value
stick will
and
be
help
moved
it
after
pursue you.
a year.
Let me share a story. A friend of mine, Sarah, was dating a guy who seemed perfect on paper, but she noticed that she was always the one keeping the relationship alive. Instead of confronting him, she decided to give him space. She stopped texting first and focused on her own life, her friends, her career, her passions. Within a week, he started texting her more, planning dates, and showing up in ways he hadn't before. Why? Because he realized what he stood to lose. Sarah's confidence and independence made her even more attractive, and he stepped up to match her energy. Here's a simple yet powerful takeaway. Giving him space isn't about manipulating him, it's about honoring yourself. It's about creating a relationship dynamic where you're both equally invested. And trust me, when you master this, it changes everything. Now, if this resonates with you and you're ready to give him the space to chase, like this video and comment number 1 below. Your support means so much, and it helps us reach more women who are ready to step into their power. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you never miss another life-changing video. We're just getting started. And the next act is one you don't want to miss. Let's keep going. 5. Celebrate your own life. When was the last time you felt truly alive, completely immersed in something that brought you joy? Think about it. The moments when you were so consumed by a passion, a project, or even a quiet walk in nature that you forgot to check your phone, forgot to wonder if he was thinking about you. Those moments are powerful because they remind you of one undeniable truth. You are the main character of your own story. Men are naturally drawn to women who exude a sense of purpose and fulfillment. Why? Because confidence, passion, and independence are magnetic. A woman who celebrates her life, who is deeply in love with herself and the world she's creating, doesn't just attract a man's attention, she captivates his soul. She becomes someone he admires, respects, and ultimately can't resist. But here's where many women go wrong. In the excitement of a new relationship, or the hope of deepening an existing one, they lose sight of their own lives. They start prioritizing his interests over theirs, shifting their schedules to accommodate him, and slowly letting go of the hobbies, friends, and goals that once made them feel alive. It's a subtle shift, but over time it sends a clear message. My happiness depends on you. And that, my dear, is a surefire way to lose both yourself and his admiration. So, how do you avoid this trap? By making a conscious choice to celebrate your own life, regardless of who is or isn't part of it. This isn't just about keeping yourself busy, it's about creating a life so rich and fulfilling that you become magnetic without even trying. It's about embodying the principles of stoicism, which remind us to find joy and peace within ourselves, not in external circumstances. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine waking up in the morning and feeling genuinely excited about your day, not because he texted you good morning, but because you're working on a project that lights you up. Maybe you've planned lunch with a friend who always makes you laugh, or you're heading to a dance class where you can lose yourself in the music. You're not sitting around waiting for his attention. You're out there living your life to the fullest. What happens when you live this way? Men notice. They see your energy, your zest for life, and your ability to create happiness on your own terms. And that makes them want to be part of your world, not because they feel obligated, but because they're inspired by your light. But celebrating your life isn't just about attracting him, it's about nurturing yourself. It's about building a foundation of joy and self-love that no relationship can shake. When you're deeply connected to your passions and purpose, you become unshakable. You no longer seek validation or cling to someone else to fill the gaps in your life, because you've already filled them yourself. This is where doubt, stoic psychology plays a crucial role. By focusing on your inner world, your thoughts, emotions, and actions, you reclaim your power. You learn to find fulfillment in the things you can control, like your personal growth, creativity, and the relationships that truly matter. And the more you celebrate your own life, the more irresistible you become. Not
Magkano
just to
saging?
him, but to everyone around
Magkano
you.
saging?
Here's an example. A friend of mine, Emily, used to define her happiness by the relationship she was in.
Nakapiling lang,
When
oh.
things were good,
Magkano
she
po
felt
yun?
on top of the world. But
57.
when her boyfriend pulled away or got busy
Isa.
with work, she spiraled into
35.
It wasn't until she
Okay na lang yun.
focusing on her own life,
Isa. Kilo pa to, di ba?
business,
Ay, makakain na iba?
old friends,
50 plus 70 lahat.
Oh.
everything changed. Not only did she feel happier and more confident, but her boyfriend also became more attentive and affectionate.
Yung saluyot, may saluyot ka?
Wala, di ba?
Ay, wala ko. Saluyot.
She stopped seeking validation and started radiating it. But let's not
Sa paano ka sa ba?
sugarcoat it.
Ay, meron pa.
Celebrating your life takes effort. It requires setting boundaries,
Yan lang.
Mm-mm.
saying no to things that don't align with your values, and carving out time for the things that matter most to you. It might mean revisiting passions you've neglected or trying something new that pushes you out of your comfort zone.
Thank you po.
Yes, It might even lead
Tanim
to
niyo
some
po
fear
yan?
of being alone.
Ay, hindi, ano ko na eh. Comprada ko.
Ah,
Here's a question.
saluyot sana.
If you were
Wala,
not
sulit
your
pa natin
romantic
eh.
relationships from
Baka
the
bukas na yun.
equation, what would bring you joy? What would give your life meaning? Write those things down. Make a list
Thank
of
you
the
po.
places, people, and dreams that light you up, and commit to prioritizing them. Breathtaking. Not to impress anyone else, but for you. When you celebrate your own life, you say,
Nasasapik ako makita kung ano
I am
ang
whole.
magiging itsura
I am enough.
ng iyong
And I am worthy of
proyekto.
love.
Yeah.
Not because of what I do
You're
for
gonna see
others,
the
but because of who I am.
result
That kind
of my 2
confidence
days
is rare,
effort.
and men can't help but be drawn to it. More importantly, it transforms how you see yourself, turning you into the best version of you. Remember, your life is a masterpiece in progress. Don't let anyone, or any relationship, dull your spark. Embrace your passions, nurture your dreams, and celebrate every moment of
My
the
feet
incredible
is so
journey you're on.
sticky.
That's the kind of energy that not only attracts love but sustains it. And trust me,
Let's clean
when he
first.
sees you living your life with this kind of joy and purpose, he'll do everything in his power to be part of it. 6. Set boundaries and keep them. Let's talk about something powerful yet often overlooked. Boundaries. When was the last time you set a boundary in a relationship and actually stuck to it? Be honest. Have you ever bent your standards just to keep the peace or avoid losing someone? If so, you're not alone.
Put
But
boundaries.
here's the truth that might surprise you. Boundaries don't push men away. They pull the right man
What is the
closer.
boundaries of your
Boundaries
relationship?
aren't rules, they're signposts. They say, this is what I value, and this is how I expect to be treated. And when you enforce them, you're not just protecting yourself. You're showing him that you're a woman who respects her own worth. Men are wired to admire strength and clarity. And nothing demonstrates that better than a woman who knows her limits and doesn't compromise them.
There is nothing,
Many women fear that setting boundaries will make them seem too difficult or high maintenance.
Very sticky still, but it's okay.
If I speak
Maybe
up,
it's gone for the always step.
it's a common worry, but the reality is this.
It will
The right man
gone.
will respect your boundaries.
Yes, it will gone after step
In fact,
many
boundaries
times.
are what make a relationship
1 year
thrive,
step, it
because they
will
create
gone.
a foundation of mutual respect.
Step for
Let's
1 year,
face why
guys.
boundaries are so essential. At their core, boundaries are about protecting your emotional well-being. They prevent you from overextending yourself and ensure that you're giving and receiving in equal measure. When you set a
My
boundary,
feet is
you're
a lot
saying,
of stick.
I value myself, and I expect you to value me too. That's not selfish, that's healthy. Here's an example. Imagine you're seeing someone who constantly cancels plans last minute. Maybe he has a good excuse, or maybe he doesn't. Either way, it leaves you feeling frustrated and unimportant. The old version of you might shrug it off, hoping he'll change. But the high-value version of you sets a boundary. You calmly tell him, I understand things come up, but I need reliability in a relationship. If you can't commit to plans, it's better to let me know up front. What happens next? One of two things.
No value.
Either he steps up and starts respecting your time, or he doesn't, and you walk away. Either outcome is a win because you're prioritizing your self-respect over his approval. This is where
Alice!
stoic psychology shines. By staying firm on your boundaries, you create a
Grabe.
dynamic where he has to rise to
My
meet
ano
your
guys.
standards, or risk losing
My
you.
feet is
But
all.
let's be real. Setting boundaries isn't always easy. It takes courage to say no, especially if you're used to being a people pleaser.
Alis muna dyan, huwag mo na akong guluhin
It
ha.
is scary to risk conflict or
Meaning is
rejection.
here.
But let me ask you
She's
this.
fine.
What's
Thanks
scarier? Momentary discomfort or spending your life in a relationship where you feel unseen and undervalued? Boundaries are also deeply tied to stoicism, which teaches us to focus on what we can control and let go of what we can't. You can't control how someone reacts to your boundaries, but you can control whether or not you enforce them. By doing so, You're taking responsibility for your happiness and refusing to settle for less than you deserve. So, how do you start setting boundaries in your relationships? Begin by identifying your non-negotiables. What behaviors or situations make you feel disrespected or drained? Write them down and get crystal clear on what you're willing to tolerate and what you're not. Then, practice communicating those boundaries calmly and confidently. Use I
I will
statements
start to
like I feel
varnish na guys.
disrespected when plans are cancelled last minute,
I will
rather
let
than
it dry
accusatory
first.
language like you never keep your word. But here's the key. Boundaries only work if you enforce them. If you set a limit and then let him cross it without consequence, you're sending the message that your words don't carry weight. Consistency is everything. When you follow through, you show him and yourself that you mean what you say. Let me share a story about a client of mine, Rachel. She was in a relationship with a man who often made hurtful jokes at her expense. At first, she laughed it off, thinking it was harmless. But over time, those jokes chipped away at her confidence. When she finally confronted him, she said, "I don't find those comments funny, and I won't tolerate being disrespected." His response: he apologized and stopped the behavior immediately. Why? Because Rachel's boundary made it clear that she valued herself, and he valued her more because of it. Boundaries aren't just about protecting yourself, they're about setting the tone for how others treat you. And here's the best part. When you enforce your boundaries, you inspire him to step into his best self. Men respect women who challenge them to be better, and boundaries are one of the most effective ways to do that. If this idea resonates with you, and you're ready to start setting boundaries in your own life, like this video and comment number 1 below. Your engagement helps us reach more women who need this message, and it keeps this empowering conversation going. And if you're not already part of this community, hit that subscribe button to join us on this journey of self-discovery and transformation. You've already come so far. Let's dive into the final act, where everything comes together in the most powerful way yet. Stay with me, because you don't want to miss it. 7. Embrace mystery. Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you left a man wanting more? Not in a manipulative way, but in a way that sparked his curiosity, fueled his desire, and made him eager to uncover the layers of who you are. If you're always an open book, laying all your emotions, intentions, and stories out on the table, you might unintentionally be missing out on one of the most powerful tools of attraction, mystery. Men are inherently drawn to the unknown. It's not because they want answers or confusion,
Jesus
but
Lord.
because curiosity is a natural driver of emotional investment. When there's a sense of discovery, they're motivated to learn more, to connect on a deeper level, and to win the privilege of truly knowing you. That's why the art of embracing mystery is so transformative. It doesn't just attract him, it keeps him captivated. But here's the thing. Mystery isn't about withholding or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about pacing. It's about letting you peel back the layers of your personality and your passions and your emotions over time, rather than handing him your entire story up front. Think of it like reading a great novel. Would it be as satisfying if the ending was revealed on page 1? Of course not. The intrigue comes from the journey, the twists, turns, and gradual unfolding of the plot. Here's how you can cultivate that same intrigue in your relationships. First, resist the urge to overshare too soon. It's natural to want to bond over shared experiences, but when you give away too much, too fast, it can overwhelm the connection. Instead, let him ask questions. Give him the chance to earn your trust and draw out your stories. When he works for your openness, he values it more. For example, imagine you're on a date and he asks about your past relationships. Instead of diving into a detailed explanation, keep it simple. I've learned a lot from them, and I'm grateful for those experiences. That one statement shows that you're mature, reflective, and emotionally grounded without giving away every detail. And guess what? it leaves him wanting to know more. This principle is rooted in dark stoic psychology, which emphasizes control over how much of yourself you reveal. When you're selective about what you share, and when you maintain control over the dynamic, you're not withholding out of fear or manipulation, you're creating space for intrigue and emotional investment. And when it feels like there's always more to discover about you, he stays engaged. But mystery isn't just about what you say, it's about how you live. Men are drawn to women who are rich, independent lives filled with passions and interests that aren't solely tied to him. You're not busy building your career, pursuing your hobbies, and nurturing your friendships, you naturally exceed your marriage intrigue. And start to wonder, what does she think about? What's she working on? What inspires her? And the more he wonders, the more he's drawn to you. This is where stoicism comes into play. By focusing on your own growth and happiness, you create a sense of emotional self-sufficiency that's deeply attractive. You're not leaning on him to fill your life, you're inviting him to be part of it. That subtle shift changes everything. Let me share a quick story. A woman I know was constantly over-explaining herself in relationships. She felt the need to prove her worth by sharing every detail about her life, her dreams, and even her fears. While her intentions were good, she noticed that men often seemed less engaged over time. One day, she decided to take a different approach. Instead of explaining herself, she started asking deep questions, listening more, and sharing her thoughts in measured doses. The result? Men began opening up to her, leaning in, and valuing her presence more than ever. By embracing mystery, he had transformed her dating life, and her confidence skyrocketed. But let's address the elephant in the room. Doesn't embracing mystery mean you're holding back who you truly are? Not at all. It's not about hiding, it's about inviting. You're still authentic, still yourself, but you're letting the connection unfold naturally rather than rushing to reveal everything at once. This creates a dynamic where both of you feel excited and engaged, rather than overwhelmed or bored. Here's a practical way to put this into action. The next time you're tempted to send a long, detailed text explaining your feelings or plans, pause, ask yourself, am I leaving room for curiosity? Instead, send a concise, thoughtful message that leaves space for him to engage. Let the conversation flow naturally rather than trying to control it. You'll be amazed at how this small shift can change the energy between you. Embracing mystery is about mastering the balance of openness and restraint. It's about showing enough to keep his interest while holding enough back to keep him intrigued. When you meet with this balance, you create a sense of depth that men find irresistible. You become the woman who isn't just memorable but unforgettable. And here's the best part. Mystery isn't something you create, it's something you are. Every woman has layers of complexity, strength, and beauty waiting to be discovered. By tasting how you reveal those layers, you give him the gift of truly earning your trust and affection. And when he earns it, he cherishes it. Remember, the question isn't about giving away the endings, it's about letting him enjoy the thrill. Embrace your mystery, and watch as he leans in, captivated by the journey of discovering you. That's the power of intrigue, and it's a power you've always had. Use it wisely. You've made it to the end of this journey, and now you hold the keys to transforming not just how men see you, but how you see yourself. These 7 acts, being comfortable walking away, valuing your attention, cultivating emotional independence, giving him space to chase, celebrating your own life, setting boundaries, and embracing mystery, aren't about playing games or following some outdated dating script. They're about stepping into your power as a woman who knows her worth. Let me ask you, which of these acts speaks to you the most? Where do you see opportunities to create change in your relationships? Or, more importantly, in your relationship with yourself? Here's the beautiful truth. When you embody these principles, you don't just captivate him. You become the best version of you. And that energy is magnetic. It draws love, respect, and admiration effortlessly because it comes from a place of authenticity and self-worth. These principles are also deeply rooted in timeless philosophies like Stoicism and dark stoic psychology. They remind us that true power isn't about controlling others, it's about mastering ourselves. When you take responsibility for your happiness, your emotions, and your boundaries, you become unstoppable. You become the kind of woman who doesn't chase love but attracts it naturally. So, what's your next step? Start small. Choose one act to focus on this week. Maybe it's giving them space. Maybe it's setting a boundary you've been avoiding. Or maybe it's diving into a passion project that makes your heart sing. Whatever it is, commit to it fully and watch how your energy shifts, not just in your relationships, but in every area of your life. And remember, you're not on this journey alone. This community is here to support you, cheer you on, and celebrate your growth. If this video resonated with you, I encourage you to like it, subscribe to the channel, and comment number 1 below. Your voice matters, and your story has the power to inspire others. Thank you for being here, for investing in yourself, and for stepping into your power. Here's to creating the love and life you deserve. Until next time, stay confident, stay radiant, and remember, the best is yet to come. See you soon. Ladies, let's talk about something powerful, something that flips the entire game. Have you ever found yourself staring at your phone, waiting for a text that never comes? Have you ever felt that awful sinking feeling when a man you thought was interested suddenly pulls back, goes quiet, or worse, acts like you don't exist? I know how frustrating that can be. And if you've ever been tempted to double text, check his social media, or ask him outright, did I do something wrong? Stop right there. Because today I'm going to show you the stoic comeback, a response so powerful, so effortlessly magnetic, that it will make him feel the weight of ignoring you. Here's the hard truth. Chasing a man, explaining yourself, or trying to fix things will only push him further away. Men don't respond to words, they respond to absence. They don't regret losing a woman who begs for attention. They regret losing a woman who becomes unattainable. This isn't about games. It's about understanding human psychology and positioning. Yourself as the prize. Because when you do this right, you won't just make him notice you again. You'll make him question everything. Stay with me until the end, because what I'm about to reveal will shift the way you handle any man who ignores you. If you're ready to turn the tables, let's begin. 1. Detach emotionally. Control your reaction. The moment he starts pulling away, you feel it deep in your chest. That sharp, sinking feeling of uncertainty. You check your phone, wondering if you missed a message. You replay your last conversation, searching for a clue, a sign, anything. That might explain why he's suddenly distant. And then, without thinking, you reach for your phone, your fingers hovering over the keyboard, tempted to send that one text. Hey, is everything okay? Stop. This is the exact moment where most women lose their power. They give in to emotion. They react. They seek clarity, validation, and reassurance from a man who, let's be honest, isn't giving them any. And the cruel irony? The more you reach out, the more he pulls away. The more you try to fix things, the more he loses interest. But what if I told you that the most powerful response isn't a text, a call, or even a single word? What if the most effective way to make him feel your absence is to do absolutely nothing? Men are wired differently. Unlike women, who often seek emotional connection through communication, men process attraction through challenge, uncertainty, and space. The second they know they have you, they stop chasing. It's not malicious, it's just biology. A man values what he earns, not what is handed to him. And when a woman reacts emotionally to his silence, whether it's with desperation, frustration, or even passive aggressiveness. She unknowingly confirms that he has the upper hand. But a woman who masters emotional detachment, she becomes unforgettable. Imagine this. He starts responding slower. His texts become short. Maybe he even stops initiating altogether. Most women panic at this stage. They assume they've done something wrong. They try to overcompensate by texting more, making themselves extra available, or subtly trying to get his attention online. But a woman who truly values herself, she does none of that. Instead, she leans back. She allows the silence to exist. She does not chase. She does not fill the void with unnecessary words. She becomes a mystery, a question he suddenly wants to answer. The power of emotional detachment is not just in what you don't do, but in how you position yourself in his mind. When a man expects you to react and you don't, he is forced to confront a reality he wasn't prepared for. The possibility that he is losing you. And the beauty of this? You don't have to manipulate, play games, or pretend to be someone you're not. You simply have to master the art of not reacting. But let's be real. It's easier said than done. That little voice in your head will tempt you. Just send one message. Just check his social media. Just post something that will make him notice you. And that's where the real test begins. Emotional detachment is about discipline. It's about resisting the urge to seek external validation, and instead, turning inward. The moment you stop looking to him for reassurance and start trusting your own worth, everything shifts. So how do you do it? First, recognize that your emotions are not instructions. Feeling anxious or hurt does not mean you need to act on it. Observe the emotion, acknowledge it, but do not let it dictate your behavior. Second, remind yourself of this truth. A man who truly values you will never put you in a position where you have to question your worth. If he is ignoring you, whether intentionally or not, he is sending a message. Your job is not to decode that message. It's to decide whether you even want to entertain a man who communicates through absence. Next, shift your focus. Instead of obsessing over what he's thinking, what he's doing, or why he's being distant, turn that energy toward yourself. Invest in your own life so fully that you don't have time to wonder about him. This isn't about pretending you don't care. It's about genuinely reaching a place where his actions do not dictate your emotions. The moment you stop making him the center of your attention, he feels the difference. He senses the withdrawal of your energy, and that is when the power dynamic begins to change. But here's the twist. Trust me, he will. You still don't react the way he expects. Most women, the moment a man returns after ignoring them, feel an overwhelming sense of relief. They respond immediately. They pick up where they left off, as if nothing happened. And just like that, the cycle repeats. He learns that he can ignore you without consequences, and over time, his respect for you diminishes. But a woman who is truly detached, she doesn't rush to respond. She doesn't run. She doesn't reward inconsistency with excitement. She makes him earn her attention back. And here's where it gets even more interesting. When a man starts to realize that your emotions are not dependent on his actions, he feels something he rarely experiences with most women: uncertainty. And uncertainty is the birthplace of attraction. He begins to wonder, has she moved on? Is she seeing someone else? Why isn't she reacting the way other women do? And suddenly, the script flips. He starts reaching out more. He starts making an effort. Not because you manipulated him, but because you refuse to let his behavior dictate your self-worth. Now let's be clear. This doesn't mean you should tolerate disrespect or emotional unavailability. Emotional detachment is not about suppressing your needs or pretending you don't care when you actually do. It's about maintaining your dignity and not giving your energy to someone who isn't reciprocating it. A high-value woman does not beg for attention. She does not tolerate inconsistency. And most importantly, she does not make a man the center of her universe. She is the universe. So the next time a man starts pulling away, don't panic. Don't chase. Don't react. Instead, do nothing. Let the silence work for you. Let him feel the absence of your presence, and watch as the weight of ignoring you becomes his burden to bear. Because at the end of the day, the only response a man truly understands is the one he never saw coming. 2. Shift your focus. Reinvest in yourself. The moment you stop reacting, something powerful begins to happen. You reclaim the energy you were unknowingly giving away. Think about it. How much mental space has he occupied in your mind? How many times have you replayed conversations, analyzed his behavior, or scrolled through his social media looking for clues? That ends today. Because the truth is, the more you focus on him, the less power you have over your own life. And the second you shift that focus back to yourself, something almost magical happens. Most women think that getting a man's attention back requires effort. Crafting the perfect text, posting the right photo, making him jealous. But in reality, the most irresistible thing you can do is this. Become so busy elevating yourself that his absence becomes irrelevant. When you make yourself the main character of your life, everything shifts. And guess what? Men notice. The energy of a woman who is deeply invested in herself, who radiates confidence and purpose, is undeniably attractive. So, what does this actually look like? It means taking every ounce of energy you would have spent worrying about him and redirecting it into you, your passions, your goals, your physical, mental, and emotional growth. Because here's the thing, when you operate from a place of lack, when your happiness is dependent on his attention, he feels it. And nothing kills attraction faster than neediness. But when you operate from a place of abundance, when you cultivate a life that is rich and fulfilling, with or without him, that's when the dynamic changes. Picture this. He checks his phone, expecting to see a message from you. Nothing. He scrolls through social media, half expecting to see some vague post about relationships, maybe something that hints at you missing him. Instead, he sees you, thriving, not in a performative way, not in a desperate attempt to get his attention, but in a way that radiates pure, unbothered joy. You're at the gym, glowing. You're out with friends, genuinely laughing. You're diving into new projects, expanding your world. And suddenly, a thought creeps into his mind. Did she move on? This is where mystery starts working in your favor. Because let me tell you something about men. They hate feeling replaceable. When a man starts ignoring a woman, he assumes she'll wait. He assumes she'll be there when he's ready to re-engage. But when she doesn't, when he starts to sense that he was just a chapter in her story, not the entire book, that's when the regret kicks in. That's when he realizes that ignoring her wasn't just an act of indifference, it was a mistake. But here's the best part. By the time he realizes it, you won't even care anymore. Because you'll be too busy becoming the best version of yourself. And that is the real flex. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about genuinely being hard to get. Because a woman who values herself doesn't chase a man who ignores her. She doesn't beg for crumbs of attention. She doesn't wait around hoping he'll notice her again. She moves.
Hey, visit how turn on fresh air.
She moves forward. She grows. And in doing so, she naturally attracts the kind of attention that doesn't need to be chased. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what if I truly want him back? What if this is just a phase and he comes back around? The answer is simple. If he is truly meant to be in your life, he will return. But when he does, he will return to a woman who is elevated. A woman who isn't just sitting around waiting for his texts. And that means the power dynamic has already shifted. He He no longer sees you as someone waiting. He sees you as someone worth chasing. So ask yourself, who do you want to be? The woman who pauses her life every time a man pulls away? Or the woman who becomes so magnetic, so unstoppable that men feel lucky to be in her orbit? Because that choice, it's entirely yours. And the sooner you make it, the sooner everything changes. If you're feeling this, if you know deep down that it's time to shift your focus and step into your power, then show me you're serious. Like this video and comment number 1 if you're ready to stop chasing and start attracting. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button, because